morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I just wanted to start off by introducing myself. My name is Brittany Sourjohn. I work for the University Events and Protocol Office. I have Terry Candelaria here with me today. She is my colleague and is the co-host of this session. So thank you so much again for joining us this morning. We have some great information for you from two wonderful speakers. But before we start, I just have a couple things that I want to share with you. If you have any comments or questions, please place those in the chat. We will be using that. We do have time at the end of the session for Q&A. So drop those there and we will monitor them. This webinar is being recorded and available on the Office of University Events and Protocol website. And it usually takes a couple days just to get it edited and then posted. So check back there if you're interested. I believe Terry is going to drop that in the chat as well. Also, if you missed the last session that we had and you are an Eventry user, you'll want to check that out. Laura and Steve did a great job. They are colleagues of Terry and I's. They did a great job talking about Eventry and some new things that are coming. So that is up and you'll want to check that out while you're on our website. There is also a new blog post that's up. We do have a blog that we post every other week or so with just some interesting information. So if you want to check that out while you're on our website, please feel free to do so. And then the last thing before I turn it over, make sure that you register for Holiday Fun with Brittany and Terry. We are going to have some fun with you, hopefully. That session is December 10th at 11 a.m. We have some fun things planned. So join us. We know it's a busy time. We know with the holidays and convocations and everything that's going on at the end of the year. But if you have an hour, come spend it with us. It'll be a good time. So enough from me. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Rensel from the Memorial Union and Student Pavilion. Joining him is Victor Hamburger from the 365 Community Union. We're so happy that they're with us today. So I'm going to turn it over to you both now.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Well, today we're going to provide some general overviews and tips for conducting hybrid and in-person meetings and events. Both Victor and I work with different venues on campus, and we've had some experiences over the last fall that we've learned from. And we're also considering what we're doing for the future. And I think that we'll have some good content and information for you today to kind of get you going, make you feel more comfortable and build some confidence in doing events in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and Victor, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're very excited to talk to you. And again, just a word of caution or note is that we live in an ever-changing world, and you know, we're constantly adapting to guidelines and new information, just as you all are. So you know, we're living that dream together. But you know, Jeff and I have been able to find a few really interesting things and tips that we want to share with you as we kind of move forward. So some of the important, well, Jeff is getting his screen shared. Some of the things that we're going to cover today, important topics and considerations, venue selection, the all-important event registration, updated cleaning and sanitizing protocols, room setups and configurations, event logistics, hybrid events, virtual events, technology, AV upgrades and things that have been going on, as well as partnerships and collaborations that are useful on campus, and some catering and food updates, because I know that is a topic that everybody is thinking about.
Is my
Jeff,
screen-
we're seeing your background.
Okay, is this,
There we go.
okay,
Perfect.
sorry, I was on the wrong screen. So you saw Disneyland, which is,
Yes.
early on, we got lots of Disneyland cues. So, okay, so you can see my screen now, important topics and considerations.
Yes, for
Okay.
sure.
Awesome, okay. Thanks, it's looking different than what I had before. So, thanks for doing a quick overview. As part of that, one of the things we did want to share, obviously, is this idea that we really want to bring, make you feel welcome in doing events on campus. And so we've done a lot to, as you have seen, facilities across campus. If you've been on campus in any of our campuses with our community of care, to really welcome our students, our faculty, our staff, and our community back to our campuses. We've obviously made lots of adjustments over the last couple of months, and we're really confident that we're going to be able to provide a safe environment. As part of that, we are going to show you a quick video that will kind of capture a little bit of what one of our partners, Gamage, has done to kind of welcome people back to campus and to put Broadway shows eventually. So we're going to show a quick video here. Here it goes.
As ASU Gamage prepares to reopen, nothing is more important than the health and safety of our patrons, staff, artists, and community. To ensure the safety of those who work at and visit ASU Gamage, we've implemented a number of changes to provide the best performing arts experience. Our venues have undergone enhanced cleaning and sanitation by our operations staff, and we observe all ASU COVID protocols. All common touch points such as door handles, railings, water fountains, restrooms, counters, and other areas are sanitized with increased frequency. Performance halls and large gathering areas are cleaned first and then sanitized using electrostatic technology, which allows disinfecting solutions to adhere to all surfaces. For your convenience, hand sanitizer dispensers are available throughout the building. To protect you, our staff, and volunteers, all ASU Gamage team members are required to wear face masks and receive temperature checks upon arriving for their shift. To help reduce the amount of physical contact at ASU Gamage, we have plexiglass barriers at the box office and wipe the counter after each customer transaction. You will also see changes to the ASU Gamage concessions area. All food and beverages will be contained in single-serving packaging. Indoor and outdoor seating will be available. Digital program books will also be available in advance of your theater experience. Information will be included in your Know Before You Go email. When you attend an event at ASU Gamage, compliance with local and national regulations regarding COVID-19 is expected. Masks are mandatory for all performances. As a reminder, please give yourself plenty of time to arrive and enter the theater, as entry and exit may take slightly longer than expected. Together, our efforts will help create a safe and enjoyable experience for all. For more information, visit asugamage.com.
So that's a great best practices kind of video in order to really help with patron comfort and safety and making them feel comfortable and welcome. You know, one of the things that all of us are doing at venues around, whether it's AMU or the stadium or Gamage, is we're doing lots of things to make sure that our patrons are safe. But we don't only want our guests to be safe, but we want them to feel safe at events. And one of the things we have to remember is that for many people, it's been a long time since they've been in a public environment where there's a group of people. So, doing our best to stay vigilant and organized really helps them be confident and feel comfortable at the event, and makes it a more enjoyable experience for all.
And I think that we've really partnered with several entities across campus to really do a lot of messaging. All of us have seen the community care messaging, sanitation stations. We've incorporated that into each of our venues. So a lot of what was featured is happening all across the board in every venue. So you can have some confidence in saying that when you are booking a space, that you will have the resources available to offer what you exactly saw in that video. And I think that there's some really important pieces there for those who are making the election to attend any sort of in-person event. We do want that comfortable atmosphere or safe atmosphere. With that, we had a couple other tips that we wanted to go into to talk a little bit about when you are planning an event and some things that we learned over the fall semester. A lot of things that we've been implementing since the event guidelines were produced is really kind of managing the entire event from start to finish. And this includes some pre-arrival. In addition to what Victor was just mentioning, communicating, especially if there are guests from the community, what the expectations are when you come to campus. Clear communication to guests, letting them know that face coverings are required, whether you're indoors or outdoors. That there are certain things that they will have to do when they arrive, and that physical distancing will be maintained and will be enforced, and that there's things that they'll need to follow as they're arriving to the event space.
And a real important piece of that is making sure that you have extra materials like face masks and wipes and those kind of things, because there are different levels of comfort for people, but there are also different expectations out there in the community. So when people come, they might forget a mask or things like that, and you'll need to react appropriately.
And most of our venues will have that. I would encourage you to check with your venue to see where and how that is distributed. Victor and I both have that in place in the venues that we operate. And I think that's pretty common in a lot of our large venues. Additionally, some of the arrival procedures will include some more of a hands-on approach to the environment. For example, if you're arriving to an event, you may be greeted by a building manager or facility manager to check in with you to make sure that the event is set up the way that you requested, and that they can really review the expectations for what the event, how the event will occur. Victor and I were talking about this. It's kind of like if you've ever stayed in a hotel room during the pandemic, Hilton does a really good job, and they put a seal on the door so that you know that when you come to that room, it's been cleaned and sanitized, and no one else has actually entered that room. And that's similar to our meeting rooms. We clean and sanitize the space. We don't want anyone else to gather in that space until the event planner and the event attendees attend the event.
And so one of the really important factors is that we make sure that the room setup isn't changing day of the event. So spending a lot more time on making sure everybody, not just the event coordinator, but directors and things like that are comfortable and ready to go with the event, because we don't want to be moving furniture around day of the event and have to re-sanitize all those spaces.
And I'll also say too that as we're considering some of the check-in, gamage, the Sun Devil Stadium have a lot of extra space for line queues. In the MU, for example, some other spaces like Old Main, the queuing gets a little complicated when there's a short amount of space. So you might want to consider where you might place your check-in table and how that process occurs. You may even use some virtual queuing and tell people when to arrive. We've seen that somewhat successful in some of our fall events. And then obviously think about ingress and egress options to minimize guest contact. One door in, one door out. I think that's really important as you are looking at how you're managing the flow of traffic. Obviously, if you're doing something 50 or less, there's not much of that occurring, especially if you're doing a good pre-arrival plan. But when everyone ends the event and they're all done, you may want to release guests from the back to the front. That's actually a recommended procedure that would help. It's no different than when you're exiting a plane, the first rows go first. Kind of make sure that there's some sort of process in place for your exiting strategy. And I'll also mention, volunteers and event staff. In student unions and centers, we have a lot of student staff that are running our buildings, and they'll be there to help facilitate some things from a facility. But you all have the ability to bring in team members from your team for an in-person event. And the more assistance you have to help answer questions, to point people in the right direction, to assist with monitoring, reminding people to wear the face covers, any cleaning or sanitizing needs, recognizing that we want to make sure it's safe at all times, not just before and after. We want it during as well. Volunteers and event staff that you have as part of your event can be key individuals to make sure that the event is safe throughout the event itself. We don't want someone to start taking their face cover off in the middle of a meeting and start, eating a sandwich and disrupting the event because they've decided they want to eat during the event and take their face cover off. So your event staff can help facilitate that part of it. We've done a lot to adjust, and we'll both talk a little bit about how we're adjusting our operations. And I do want to preface this diagram. This is not necessarily a public-facing occupancy for consumption, so to speak, but it does give you a little bit of idea of our reduced capacities. We within EOS has been using 6 feet of distance as our measure for creating safe spaces. We use social tables as a diagramming software. We'll show some diagrams in the future part of this presentation, but there are obviously reduced capacities, and that's for everyone's safety. We have the ability to do a variety of things, and what we found too is that lots of clients that we haven't had too many, but several clients that in the fall have been very unique with some of their setups, creating setups that we've never done before because of this idea of physical distancing. We also have enhanced technical stuff, which we'll also refer to later on in this presentation, to really bring the hybrid events to light, really providing that option for people to not only choose to attend in person, but also get the same experience from online.
And during this time, it's been a huge piece from not only the Memorial Union, but the stadium, it's been a time where we've invested into the facilities as well. So we've created, these virtual and hybrid opportunities by adding cameras, adding other things that we'll talk about later on that allow these events to allow hybrid events or small events that are then broadcast online to become much more prevalent in the future.
And we all are cleaning and disinfecting as part of daily routines now through our Olympus vendors, Airmark vendors, and other partners that we utilize within our facilities. It's a normal practice that you can have confidence that we're doing on a daily basis.
Producing hybrid events is one of the things that both at the MU and at the stadium we're looking forward to doing a lot more of, especially in the spring, as people become more comfortable with small events happening again. So, the big thing we're kind of focused on is small events, so less than 50 people, but having that event then streamed online. So there are some real advantages to that in terms of engagement, in terms of having, all of us have a little bit of Zoom fatigue at this point. We've been on a lot of Zoom meetings from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. And having an event that feels a little bit different, flows a little bit differently, feels more like you're attending a conference, those kind of things can create more engagement on the patron side of things or your guest side of things. So it allows for that. So, additional things, it allows for you to still have some of that in-person interaction for key constituents, but still maintain that social distance guidelines. It is a fine line, and it's one of those things, as Jeff says, you have to continue to remind people of the community of care requirements and social distancing. So even making sure on your event staff that you have dedicated people that are their job basically is to remind people of social distancing and in a polite and courteous way, because people get into old habits and those kind of things. One of the things we've found too is we've done a lot of work to put in remote camera systems at the stadium so that we're able to do the control and the staffing of the cameras and microphones and those kind of things from outside of the room. So we're able to do that and not actually be in the room for us to allow for more people to be in the room. You know, we're all trying to make sure we're staying under that 50 number and do that, but we also don't want to have half the room be staff organizing the event. We still want to have lots of patrons in there. So one of the things we've also seen as a best practice, and you know, there's a lot of ways to do this, but one of the things that has made people, and particularly speakers, feel more comfortable is if everyone has a lavalier microphone. So instead of a shared or common microphone for people, really making sure that everyone has their own lav so that they feel comfortable and they don't feel like they're handling a microphone that's just been touched by someone else.
And with that said, if you do use a handheld, make sure you have the wipes or sanitizer available at all times, so that if you don't have the option for a lavalier, you have the options to clean in between use. And I think that's been a practice we've done a couple times for our music series. I'd also mention with our what we've done here in the MU is created a portable solution for Zoom hybrid meetings, where it's literally a camera, no different than the one I'm using in my office, on a tripod with a USB extender, to really provide an option for you to set up in a small room. So if you had 4 people in a physically distant setup and you wanted to zoom in with a larger audience, it is a kind of a prepackaged to go option for a Zoom hybrid type of meeting. We have several of them available in the MU now. We've done it successfully a couple times in the last couple weeks, and others are starting to purchase similar things. The SDFC is going to be purchasing something for their event spaces, and it's something that is really easy. And again, as Victor mentioned, to reduce the amount of people producing an event, and to really kind of be a plug and play, where you can actually do a hybrid event without needing to pay for someone to be there to manage your event. It can be done in a very easy way, just with a couple of things connected to a laptop.
We've also all been producing a lot more completely virtual events, bringing in people together from all over the country. So there's a lot of different factors that are involved in producing an event. And there's a lot of needs you need to consider with when you're considering how and what method you're going to use. So some things to consider are audio needs. So if you have music or live performers or anything like that, there are things that, and Zoom is getting a lot better in this in terms of audio. But there's still things like frame rate, video frame rate, and those kind of pieces that you need to consider. The other kind of figure is audience size and budget, of course, is the big one. We can produce, a high-end Zoom event for a very inexpensive price. But when you start going into producing a video stream where you're actually bringing in video production, and you're looking at virtual camera links where you're bringing in HD video feeds from all over the country and putting them together on one screen, your costs do get up there as you do get additional people together at a really high quality if you're streaming this in HD for people to be able to watch at home. So it is a really great opportunity to bring in some people that are limited by travel constraints. There are a lot more people, speakers, that are available now that weren't available just because they can't, they're not able to play 2 cities in the same day in the old times. But now they're able to do 3-4 virtual events in the same day. So there are more speakers and those kind of things available. One of the tips that we recommend for producing virtual events is a mix of live and pre-produced video. So this gives you the ability to have that fine-tuned, really professional look, but also can look at the live component. So the live component makes it feel fresh and real, but you're still able to keep that pre-produced video. And another thing is to remember accessibility best practices too. So captioning is one. I know this is one that has been really difficult, particularly And I know Zoom's getting better at this and has some captioning services available too. But all of us are really trying to make sure that our content is accessible for all audiences. So when you're producing these events, think about things like that and accessibility as first. Jeff and I actually had a chance to work together on one of these virtual events. So EOS does Inferno Fest every fall. And so the community union and EOS and Jeff and everybody got to come together and produce the Charlie Puth concert in October, which was really fun because we were able to bring in video sources from all over the country. We had Charlie in LA. We had people at the student pavilion. It was really great. And there's some additional pieces that Jeff will share later on that created a really high-end product for our students that really engaged with them.
Yeah, thanks. And there are some things and tools that you can do to make something like that successful. And also, we'll also talk about collaboration and partnerships, which Victor and I were brought in, and you know, we actually saw each other remotely. I was actually on site, and he was on the Zoom that we were talking to each other. It was really kind of magical, so to speak, and pulling everything together to put that event on. It was a great experience. We did want to talk a little bit about food. Food is something that we've always had in the past as part of our events. Sometimes it's the way to get people to attend events or something that people get to look forward to. There are obviously things that are very unique as it relates to food, and I'm going to take a brief moment to review some of the things that we're doing with Sun Devil Dining through our partnership with Airmark. So this will kind of be focused in on some of the things we're doing with Airmark specifically. There are obviously other vendors that are available on campus, but Airmark's our primary food service provider, obviously for campus dining and for catering. Since the pandemic started, Airmark's done a tremendous job of creating some options for people to do some what's called catering in a box. It really basically takes the idea of buffets and you know, people grabbing food from one source to actually pre-packaging it to ensure safety of both the provider and the attendee and the overall safety of the event itself. You know, obviously there's still quite a bit of good quality food and flavors as the slide refers to, and they've done a great job. And I have some pictures to kind of showcase some of that. You know, a lot of work has gone into this. They have a team that's able to do this type of service, and you can feel confident with doing this to bring this aspect to your event. I will say, however, right now as it stands, a lot of our EOS facilities, for example, we don't, and this is part of the student experience at this moment, we don't allow eating inside the building. And what that means is you have to think differently about how you're offering those food options. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means and what that looks like. And then I also want to mention, as this picture shows, there's lots of safety signage and messaging that Airmark on themselves have done for their process to ensure that not only are we doing things on the ASU side, Airmark's going on their side as well to provide a safe environment for those who are participating in a dining experience. This is just some ideas of some of our prepackaged to-go catering. You can see this was a Thanksgiving meal that we've done. They're doing a lot of work with our food delivery service within the residence halls currently. But we have both hot food and cold food options, and it's prepackaged. So whatever you can fit into a 3-compartment plastic container. I will say these plastic containers are recyclable and they're microwavable. So we can still meet some of our sustainability goals. But it's really an option for us to provide some sort of food as part of an event. You can see that this picture down the bottom right is actually on our outdoor ingrain terrace. We did an event outside. It was very successful. They were able to space out on the ingrain terrace safely and eat at this event. It was done in a manner that everyone felt safe, and they were able to consume some great food. Had several options for them to choose from during this event. And obviously there's, lots of different things you can do. And I will say that they're very open to customized menus. So if it's not on the menu, just ask. They're very, very flexible with that. They understand that people have certain needs. So if you've done a certain type of meal in the past, know that you can still do that meal. It just might need to be rethought a little bit about how it's given to the attendee, via the packaging and how you're actually distributing it. But there are ways to bring that to your attendees. A couple other pictures to kind of showcase how that happens. This is another picture of our ingrained event. They do both contactless pick up and go and hosted events. So you can see all of Aramark staff has masks on. They're able to successfully produce the meals that you are asking for in a safe manner, with all, everything still is prepackaged. You can see the cookie giveaway that we did. That was something we did outside the residence halls as part of something that Barrett. And then we did a football tailgate for the first game where we gave out breakfast burritos in individual bags. It was something that we did up at Tooker House as a means to get some food out to our residents, to kind of bring some cool ways to bring food to what would traditionally be an in-person tailgate. We have to think differently about how we make that an experience. I did put the link for the ASU Catering website. And then if you have any questions about catering, just email the asucatering@gmail.com, and they will work with you to produce an event with food that you can feel confident. With that said, that might mean that you could do it in an outdoor venue, or you can actually set it up to where maybe after an event is completed, you have a distribution plan to take the food with you when you're exiting the interior space. And there's just lots of different things you can think about with a coordinating event like that.
And one of the things, we're working on a similar kind of philosophy and setup at the stadium with Sodexo. So one of the things that we do is look at options for overflow, in terms of, the event isn't necessarily contained to just a room anymore. We have to think about an outside environment. Because you're also going to have, even if we allowed eating in a room, you're going to have people that aren't comfortable with that yet. So, it increases the footprint of the event. Additional areas need to be cleaned and sanitized and ready to go, so that you have people able to step outside and eat in a club area, or have tables set up for people. So it's an additional thing you have to think out when planning the footprint of your event.
We have several outdoor spaces available, and we'll talk a little bit about some of them today. But for example, we reserve the student services lawn. We also have the ingrained terrace, as I mentioned, and every campus has a large field space that we've engaged in different ways over the past semester. So we did want to talk a little bit about some of the diagrams and setups. Our event and services team here in the MU, as well as other student unions and centers, have really done a good job of trying to create some diagrams to help you as event planners, or perhaps venue operators, or colleagues that work with events, on ways to help create an experience that's safe for your attendees. So for example, there's a career fair event, the diagram that we created in social tables, a sample theater seating. If there is a way to do an event, we will be open to doing that. We tried lots of different things with our staff over the last semester, different unique setups where you set up a 6-foot table and you put 2 chairs on the end, which you would normally put on the long side. You put it on the end of the table to create that distance. There's lots of different ways you can be very unique with your setups. We've done a fairly good job of creating some of these already and testing them out, but the sky's the limit, I would say. And if you have an idea, please work with our team. Our social tables diagramming software is easily shareable as a collaboration to you, so we can send it to you to take a look at and make comments and changes. And they've actually added several features, including sanitation stations and other things, to really make it an easy way to showcase, so that if you wanted to share this information with your attendees prior to arrival, you can actually share a diagram with them so that they know where they're seating, or where they can find hand sanitizer, that kind of thing. That's all incorporated into the software that we are currently using.
And one of the things, not only at the stadium, but as Jeff mentioned too, we look at every event as custom. So we look at planning the event that really works for our clients and the event. So, in Santa Ana Ford, we have a variety of social distance layouts that we're looking at. Ones with angled seating, one with straight seating, ones with tables, ones without. Looking at those kind of things, ones that are for fully hybrid events or just completely immersive events. So looking at all those kind of different pieces and how that works. Additionally, we're also looking at, as the spring, we're looking at pod-based events that could happen on the field, where we create small pods of 50 that are socially distanced and separate from each other, that we're actually looking at them as pods of 48, and then having two people kind of enforcing social distance guidelines and keeping an eye on things. But these pods could kind of exist in their own kind of environment to allow for some larger based field events that are still very distant. I think one of the best practices is, and I'll let Jeff talk about this, is the Sun Devil Game Day experience that EOS did, a pod-based system at the SDFC.
Yeah, and this was a game that we really wanted to bring the game day experience, which since we couldn't do it in person, we did it to our outdoor fields. We created 6-foot circles in the middle of the field. We brought out big display screens to show the game, and we did this on every campus with success. We actually sold out in advance of the spaces for reservation for the Tempe campus, and we had a few no-shows, but that was allowed us to actually accommodate the people that showed up without a reservation. So we had a full field of students who are in social bubbles, or people, either the roommates or family members, to be able to watch the game itself. And I think that's just a good showcase of how you can leverage some of our outdoor spaces to run a safe and successful event and still build affinity and watch a football game. Hopefully we'll watch another football game this weekend against UCLA.
Yeah, I think these pod-based events for outdoor events, these pod-based systems are really going to be something that you see a lot of in the spring across campus, and different things where you're able to have larger events by creating smaller, distinct 50-person events that are spread out over a large space, like the football field or like the SDFC field. So it's something that is available, and we're working on and still testing and looking at, in some cases, how many people we can do safely.
We had a couple of other examples that we like to share, some case studies that were very successful for the fall. We did some virtual streaming of events. We did a weekly live music series where we would bring a band to the student pavilion through our PEB production team. And we were able to basically bring a live band to students on a weekly basis. This is a picture of a DJ that was actually set up for another event. And we have what we've set up is what we call the Sanita A Sound Studio, which is just a fancy word that we use for a permanent setup that we have in the student pavilion that our student production crew uses on a weekly basis to bring virtual events to our student community. And it's something that's actually done has had a fair amount of success. And what we've learned is that if there is an idea out there for you and your colleagues to host something like this, please know you can utilize the Memorial Union for something like that, or any of our spaces. If you feel that and you want to make a request for that, if you would like to have an interest in booking something like that on a weekly basis, please let us know. We'd love to be able to partner with you and figure out how we can bring something like that to you. Our PAP production team is available to help produce some of these types of events, not only in the student pavilion, which is primarily for student orgs, but in the Memorial Union and other spaces on campus. They're actually able to take this equipment in other spaces on campus. I also put a picture of a recent event that we hosted actually just a couple of weeks ago, Ignite at ASU, which where student speakers get up and talk to an audience, where we actually did a hybrid event where you can see the chairs are 6 feet apart around a round table. So that was live streamed. So the person presenting was actually live with a live audience. We had a viewing party next door in the SNEDA BC ballroom, which, you know, Victor was mentioning, kind of spreading out into different pieces. So you could do a 50, you know, we did in this case, a 30-person event live with live streaming. And then we did a 50-person event next door with physical distancing, where you actually viewed what was going on in the room next door. Lots of different options for you to consider as you're hosting events, both virtual and hybrid. This is another quick picture. I had another picture here that didn't end up loading, but that's okay. But we also enhanced some of our technology in the Memorial Union recently. Our Alumni Lounge, Arizona Ballroom, Pima Auditorium, and Turquoise Ballroom all received Zoom camera updates. These are similar to the classrooms that they installed over the summer for all of our Zoom classrooms. You can see I'm doing in this picture, it's me in front of the room with a Zoom camera on me in a Zoom room. So again, this is something that if you're looking for a hybrid type of event, you can actually reserve space for us. And if you have an in-person attendee or attendees, you can do the part of it in person, and you can have everyone else Zoom in and still have a great event. This is all incorporated into the AV systems in the room itself. And the picture I was going to show for the outdoor was more of a our PAB team did a Spooktober event, which brought in some low fog and some really cool features to really kind of create a very nice ambiance for their event, which really kind of helped build some excitement and really kind of helped engage our students. I'll have to show that at a different time. But it's
a great photo, trust me, people.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I think the photo was too large and detailed for the presentation.
So we've been doing some hybrid events in Santan Ford Club. This is a picture of the Rio Reimagined event that we did. I think it was the end of August or early September. I can't remember. You know, it was produced multi-camera shoot. There are extra, you know, it's not all of those cameras because there are some news coverage there as well. But socially distanced event that was then streamed online. Additionally, we've upgraded our camera systems in Santan Ford Club and Coaches Club so that we have multiple camera feeds within the room, so that we have an audience shot, we have a straight ahead shot, we have a side shot. All three cameras can be controlled remotely from outside the room or within the room, depending on the configuration or setup, so that we're able to zoom in, do different feeds, focus on different areas of the room. Really allow us to have a really high production feel, all controlled by a single individual, whether they're in the room or outside of the room, as opposed to needing a camera operator and all these additional bodies in the room. So it really makes doing events very simple, and it can be as easy as a 2-camera thing, or it can get more complicated where you have 3 cameras and multiple microphones and all those kind of things. So there are everything's custom based on the event need.
And jumping off of that, similar to what you know, creating an experience for someone. This is actually something we referred to earlier when we hosted Charlie Puth. This is the system that we actually used to do a kind of a meet and greet Q&A with Charlie after his performance. And what was really cool about it is that we had an in-person experience where the students would stand in front of the screen, which was logoed with PAB, because they were all PAB students. And then we were able to do a Zoom with Charlie and ask him questions. And this is a kit that we actually have permanently set up in our studio, so where students can stand in front of it. They have a confidence monitor and a screen seeing what's going on, and actually can engage with whatever it is that they're engaging with in an event. And as Victor was mentioning, there's a lot of things that you can do with both pre-produced stuff and live stuff. And this can be part of that. I would like to do a little plug that we have a green screen chroma key studio in the MU through our digital creative services. That's available for students for projects, but it's also available for students for producing events. So if they want to produce a video before they do an event to show at the event, they can do that and use those services. This in particular is easy to set up. We can actually set this up in the MU or other places on campus, and is a great way to kind of help bring a little bit more of a high level as again, we were mentioning earlier, high level of professionalism and look and feel to an event. So they're not just stuck in the Zoom meetings that we've always been in.
And for virtual events, it's super useful for creating that additional VIP opportunity too. So if you have sponsors, if you have additional people, you're able to bring them together where they're one-on-one, face-to-face almost, with the speaker or with the dignitary that you've brought in for your event. So they're able to do things like, and we can screen cap those and send them to them. So we're able to have they are able to have a takeaway from the event, just like they would asking a question after event and taking a photo with your speaker. So there's things we can do to create that experience, even if we're not in person.
And I'll just jump in. I just saw that there was some sort of Comic-Con virtual event where you can actually do a meet and greet and take a picture with a celebrity in the Zoom room. So it's happening within the greater commercial community, with celebrities. So this is something that we're definitely seeing an uptick in. I did also, want to mention that how important it is to partner amongst and across the university. Other departments, academic units, student orgs can really help to create a really cool experience, especially if you can bring students, staff, faculty all together to pull something off. A great example of that is in these pictures that if you are on the West Campus, you probably are very familiar with this. We've hosted bingo out on the drive-in bingo experience. That was a collaboration effort, and it was very successful. And in fact, I think they did 2 of them after all of that. And that was a great example of collaboration in the works for the spring or for the fall semester, which I think they got some great experience and might do again in the spring. And again, it's really helped to make things happen this semester. Using your resources, getting people to collaborate. I think that is a key piece of doing events in the future, is working through all the different ways to partner with other organizations, departments, and resources. And that we kind of put together a small list, which thanks to the MECA team has always been good at putting out there. Our technology team, our audiovisual events management, I'm sure we all know of Seth Levine at this point. He's a great resource for this. That's an email address to get to him. Grounds and Moving Event Services has some resources available to you as well. Parking and Transit, other venue managers. I work very closely with Mike Toma and Old Main on some different practices and things. So lots of opportunities to partner and collaborate across our departments.
And it's one of those times too on this where a lot of us are looking for more opportunities to partner and bring people together than have been traditional in the past. So there may be some things that 6 months ago or a year ago, you thought that's not possible. We won't be able to pull something like that off. A lot of those things are now becoming in play, and you're able to get those partnerships going that you weren't able to before.
Yeah, and I really like, Brittany and Terry were mentioning this before, that the new Eventry system that provides a virtual conference experience, that's a new resource available to us that can be utilized. There's lots of cool things that are coming out that I think some of which I'm still learning, right? I think Victor and I are probably still learning some of those things, right? So if you find something you want to share, please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. We want to make sure we are aware of what's happening out there.
And one last plug before we get to questions, just making sure that everyone registers their events and gets that done early in the process. So there's a lot more safeguards, there are a lot more things in play than there were a year ago. So registering your events very early, knowing that you can still edit them, you can still add things to them. Registering your events early is a big plus for everyone.
So, and I appreciate that plug, because I think that's super important. And I also want to put a plug for our contact information if you have further questions for us in our individual areas. Our contact information is on the screen now, and feel free to email us if you have any extra questions outside of our Q&A.
Okay, thank you so much. That was great. Lots of wonderful information for everybody. Thank you so much for the event registry plug. It's appreciated on our end as well. um, okay, so let's get to a couple questions. If you have questions, again, please drop them in the chat. The first question to you guys that I would like to start with is, how can someone find the updated capacity numbers with the physical distancing for event spaces? So I know that was included in your presentation, but is it kind of just a case by case basis, something that needs to be talked through?
Yeah, I think Victor and I will both have something to say about this, is that it is unique. And I think Victor mentioned it and really highlighted this idea of customization. We've done things, I did share that document in the presentation, but there are different ways of doing things. And I think that we know what can fit physically with 6 feet of distance between each chair using furniture. And no different than an event that you might have done pre-pandemic, where you have to accommodate for catering or stage. We will need to accommodate based on the needs of your event. So we would ask you to work with our venue managers to figure out if you have an ideal number to fit it into the right location, and then we can go from there to figure out the actual capacity. Because every reviewed event goes through special event registry, and also looks at occupancy.
Yeah, same thing. We're really looking at custom, really looking at building it. Right now, we're really focused on those events under 50 and discouraging events over that. Unless there are some the ability to do it outside, the ability to do it in pods, those kind of things right now.
Okay, perfect. Pauline asks, and I'm not sure if this is even, things are kind of just being addressed, on a case by case basis. But if eating outside is only, is still required when it gets hot again, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and in fact, we've been dealing that within EOS in providing the dining experience for our students who are actually already asked to not eat inside. Not everyone's going to go back to their room to consume their lunch when they come to the MU or the dining halls. There are several spaces on campus. We have a beautiful campus right now. Thankfully, the weather is nice now, so there are lots of shaded areas that students can use currently, or staff can use as well. I think down the road we will address that, and there are options out there that I think could be considered. Tenting in large spaces. If you've been to the staff barbecue in the past, they've done a lot of tenting around their food, and brought in umbrellas, that kind of thing. And we're thankful to have pretty nice weather until May. So at least we have through the semester a decent enough weather, but it does get hot. I'm not a fan of eating when I'm sweating, but there are some ways we can be creative with shade. Our outdoor rooms that have been installed on campus do have fans, and when they're not being used for classes or other means, people could sit in there and get shade and use of the fans. But there are, I think, some options that you can consider for eating outside if that's the case when it does get hot.
We have the ability to bring in air coolers and those kind of things to help cool down outdoor areas. We don't love it from a sustainability standpoint, but we do understand it is Arizona, and there's sometimes we need to use those things.
Okay. Can you both talk a little bit about the cleaning procedures that you have in place? I know you touched on it. Olympus is, part of the MU crew, but anything else that people might want to be in the know about?
Yeah, so we follow all the guidelines that were put out by our facilities team as far as cleaning and disinfecting and sanitizing. So we use the same products. In fact, when you walk into our facilities, and the Gamage video is a great way to showcase this in a video format. That's actually happening in our venue, like in the MU, for example. So we clean and sanitize. There's high touch points done multiple times a day. Our meeting spaces are cleaned before an event begins, can be done during an event, and will be done after an event. And we have sanitation stations available in the room which is similar to what we do in classrooms, where individual comes in and wants access to wipes and hand sanitizer. We have that in place in all of our rooms, available at all times.
Yeah, and I think, additional pre-cleans and things like that that happen right before an event are things that we look at, that we may look at a little differently than we did a year ago. If you do an event and you clean it in the evening and then you have another event in the morning, you're kind of like, that's good, but that doesn't really fly anymore. You really have to clean that or do a pre-clean before the event to make sure that the space is sanitized and no one's been in there. And I think, they do a good job with having the room locked and those kind of things at the MU so that people aren't getting in and touching everything and contaminating a space.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know you mentioned the hotels are doing that like sticker on the door. I
And car
also
rentals, like you mentioned, yeah.
Yeah, the rental car. I was like, oh my gosh, that's great. Now I know that nobody has been in here. Not great that I had to get a rental car, but it's scary. Okay, I would like to know, we've been talking so much about keeping people engaged virtually, and the Zoom fatigue is real. So any tips for how we can make things, engaging for our virtual users?
I think the hybrid event is that kind of way that we can look at in the future to engage in a little more way, where you have a small number of people, might only be 6 or 7 people, just your speakers, but you're able to have them in person so that there is a little bit transition. There's the ability to have them in front of a screen and those kind of things that make it feel more like you're attending a conference. Just something to break up that monotony of the screen and Zoom fatigue that people have. It just feels a little more engaging. I do think fully virtual events, it's a little more hard to do. But one of the things that we do is with fully virtual events is we'll have a kind of side room where people are in Zoom ready to ask questions, and then we'll bring them in just to ask questions on the virtual broadcast. But having more Q&A with actual faces and those kind of things is helpful too. So it's not just a chat screen or that, but the hybrid event model, I think, is something that can work. It's something that it doesn't cost a lot, but it does require more people in the room, so you have to have more comfort level, which not everybody's there right now.
Right.
I'd also say too, one of the things we did for a class this summer was we actually did a Zoom tour of the student pavilion. And again, you can take your Zoom to go. I did it on my phone, believe it or not, where you can actually be more engaging. So maybe it's maybe you did reserve a meal as part of your event, that you finished your event. Well, maybe you have an experience where you're actually doing a live Zoom demo from the team that made your meal. That you can watch live to talk about how they prepared your meal. Like Airmark's willing to do that. They've done that for our finals breakfast. They talked a little bit about how they built the burrito. This is back in May. They did a video with the chef that made what the students were eating. And they did a video to kind of say, hey, here's what we did to put your burrito together. And again, it's more engaging content rather than what we're doing here, where it's just one way presentation. It's really kind of engaging in a different format, where you're taking it's mobile. You're getting more engaged with activity. And I do appreciate what Victor mentioned, as this idea of hybrid, where you bring the people who are comfortable in person. I think that's what's going to happen in the spring. A lot of that. We're doing something next week where we're doing a training with ASU PD, where we're going to have a small team on site for the training. So the presenter is actually interacting with the people there in person, and will be reacting via Zoom. It's a very different experience, I think, that really kind of brings a little bit more of a better feeling, I think, to the Zoom experience.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. I think a lot of people are anxious to, get their events back up and running. Of course, we all are. Any thoughts on, how you'll kind of handle things if we are able to do larger than 50? I know we've, taken our guidance from leadership as far as what our numbers are, and we're holding at that 50 or less. But that could change at some point in the spring or after. I'm not exactly sure, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that we're all playing by ear a little bit. It's really kind of interesting when we're getting inquiries from people. We're getting inquiries for a lot of hybrid events and smaller events where you're really looking at 20 people in a room or 30 people in a room, and then streaming the whole thing. And then you get the complete other side of the spectrum where people are like, what do you mean I can't do 400 people in the ballroom? Those kind of things, which is really interesting from an event coordinator standpoint, to try to explain to people that there's a pandemic going on. That's really kind of interesting.
Right.
But we're looking at some of those pod-based kind of environments outside where we're able to spread things out and do them in a huge area like the football field. We're planning a couple of them. We're looking really to push a lot of that stuff to late spring as opposed to early spring. And so when people are saying, hey, what do you think about something in January in a pod-based environment? We're kind of shying away from that, but if their date is flexible, pushing it to late spring where there's a hope that things are going to be a little bit better. Really trying to keep large events out of cold and flu season for the most part, as we're all trying to keep numbers down and flatten that curve.
Yeah.
But pushing those events later in the spring is kind of what we're trying to do with clients right now.
Okay. All right. Well, it is 11 o'clock. Terry, I'm going to put you on the spot. I think she found Jeff's picture that was not able to be shared. So, as we're wrapping up, if you want to share that, I know everybody's waiting to see it. It was so great. I agree with Victor that it is an epic photo. I want to thank you both so much for your time today. This was great information. And again, this session is being recorded, so it'll be available to everybody. And we hope everyone has a great day. So thank you so much. And again, if you haven't registered for the session next week, you can do so. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.